What if one of the most important numbers you rely on to protect your heart is sometimes misleading you? Not because the machine is broken, not because your blood pressure suddenly changed forever, but because you checked it at the wrong moment? That is the part many people over 60 never get told. They buy a home blood pressure monitor. They do what seems sensible. They wrap the cuff around the arm. They press the button. They trust the number. And if it looks high, they worry. If it looks low, they worry. If it jumps around, they worry even more. But here is where people get confused. Blood pressure is not a fixed number. It is a moving number. It changes with stress. It changes with movement. It changes with caffeine. It changes with a full bladder. It changes with conversation. It can even change after a meal. So the question is not just, what is my blood pressure? The more useful question is this: when am I checking it? And is that moment giving me a number I can actually trust? Because if you are over 60, timing matters more than most people realize. Arteries often become stiffer with age. Blood pressure can become more variable. Many older adults take medications that affect circulation. Some people become more sensitive to meals, stress, dehydration, or sudden activity. And that means a poorly timed reading can scare you for no reason, or reassure you when it should not. That is exactly what we are going to clear up today. By the end of this video, you will know the 5 times you should not measure your blood pressure if you want a more accurate reading, why these moments can throw the number off, why this matters even more after 60, and what kind of routine gives you a truer picture of what is really going on. And I want to be very clear from the start. This video is educational. It is here to help you understand how blood pressure readings can be affected by timing and everyday habits. It is not here to diagnose you. It is not here to tell you what your personal number means, because the goal is not panic. The goal is clarity. Before we go any further, if this channel helps you understand health changes in a way that is simple, calm, and actually useful, subscribe right now. This channel is built for people who want straightforward information, especially as the body changes after 60. No drama, no jargon, no scare tactics, just clarity. Now let us get into the mistake that causes a huge amount of confusion. Why timing can completely distort the reading. Most people assume blood pressure is like stepping on a scale. You step on, you get the truth. But blood pressure does not work that way. It is more like taking a snapshot of a moving system. Your heart is responding to what you just did. Your blood vessels are responding to what you just drank. Your nervous system is responding to how relaxed or how tense you feel. Your kidneys and circulation are responding to whether your bladder is full. And your body can shift from calm to activated faster than people think. That means one reading, taken at the wrong time, can tell a story that is not really your normal story. This is why some people say things like, "My pressure is always high at home." Then you ask when they check it, and they say right after climbing the stairs, or after coffee, or while they are frustrated, or while talking, or while rushing out the door. And suddenly the number makes a lot more sense. The issue is not always the machine. Sometimes the issue is the moment. So let us go through the 5 times that create some of the most misleading readings, especially in adults over 60. Time number 1. Right after exercise, housework, or rushing around. This is the first big mistake. A lot of people sit down immediately after moving around and take their blood pressure right away. Maybe you just walked in from outside. Maybe you climbed the stairs. Maybe you were cleaning the kitchen. Maybe you were carrying groceries. Maybe you were hurrying because you suddenly remembered, "I forgot to check my pressure." Then the reading comes up higher than expected, and now your mind starts spinning. But this is exactly what physical activity does. It temporarily pushes the heart to work harder. It raises heart rate. It changes blood vessel tone, and it can make the pressure look higher than your true resting level. That does not automatically mean something is wrong. It may simply mean you measured movement, not resting blood pressure. That distinction matters, especially after 60. Because many people in this age group are not checking blood pressure to see what it does during activity. They are checking it to understand their baseline. their usual resting number, their day-to-day pattern. And if that is your goal, measuring right after movement can easily mislead you. This includes more than formal exercise. People hear exercise and think gym, treadmill, or long walk. But the body does not care whether you call it exercise. If you were physically active, your blood pressure can respond. That includes brisk walking, vacuuming, changing bed sheets, rushing to answer the phone, hurrying because you are late, even walking in from the parking lot and sitting down immediately. That is why sitting quietly first matters so much. Because what you want is not the number from the middle of activity. You want the number after your system settles. And that brings us to something many people overlook. Sometimes it is not the exercise itself, it is the rushing. The body reads rushing as activation. You are breathing faster, your muscles are engaged, your stress response may be slightly turned on. And the reading reflects that. So if you are over 60 and you want a more accurate number, do not measure the second you stop moving. Let your body arrive first. Let it settle. Let the reading reflect you, not the errand you just finished. Time number 2. Within 30 minutes of coffee, tea, smoking, alcohol, or other stimulants. This is one of the most common reasons people get misleading numbers at home. They wake up, they drink coffee, they smoke, they have tea, sometimes they take a stimulant or decongestant, sometimes they had alcohol not long before. Then they check their blood pressure and think, why is it suddenly doing this? Because timing matters. Caffeine can temporarily raise blood pressure in some people. Nicotine can tighten blood vessels and raise pressure too. Alcohol can also distort the picture. And the important word here is temporarily. That means the reading may not represent your usual resting blood pressure. It may represent what your body is doing in reaction to what you just consumed. And that is a very different thing. This is where adults over 60 can get especially tripped up. Why? Because many people in this age group have routines. Morning coffee, morning medications, a cigarette after breakfast, an evening drink, tea while watching the news. And if the blood pressure monitor becomes part of that routine without the right timing, the numbers can start looking confusing, inconsistent, or unnecessarily alarming. You may think your pressure is unstable, but sometimes what is unstable is the measurement routine. That is what people miss. Not every high reading means your blood pressure is suddenly out of control. Sometimes it means you checked it too close to something that temporarily moved it. This is also why random comparisons can be misleading. One day you measure before coffee. The next day you measure after coffee. One day you are calm. The next day you are halfway through your morning routine and a little rushed. Now you compare the numbers and think your blood pressure is becoming unpredictable. Maybe, but maybe not. Maybe you are comparing two completely different body states. And if you are over 60, consistency becomes even more important because the stakes feel higher. A number can affect your mood for the whole day. A number can make you anxious. A number can send you searching the internet. A number can cause you to call family and say, something is wrong. That is why the moment before the reading matters just as much as the reading itself. If you want a more useful number, do not measure too soon after coffee, smoking, alcohol, or anything else that can temporarily shift the result. Otherwise, you may be reacting to the habit, not the baseline. Time number 3, when your bladder is full. This one surprises a lot of people. A full bladder does not just feel uncomfortable, it can actually affect your blood pressure reading. And most people never think about that. They are holding it. They tell themselves they will use the bathroom later. They sit down with the cuff on, they press the button, then they wonder why the number looks off. But the body does not separate these things the way people do. If your bladder is full, your nervous system can become more activated. That can raise blood pressure. And suddenly, the number on the screen is not just reflecting your circulation, it is reflecting your discomfort too. This matters more than it sounds, because a lot of people over 60 live with some kind of bladder change. More urgency, more nighttime urination, more frequent trips, sometimes incomplete emptying, sometimes I can hold it a little longer. So this is not a small detail. It is a very real reason that a home reading can look higher than it otherwise would. And here is the problem. People often do not realize the bladder played a role. They do not think, maybe I should have gone first. They think, My blood pressure is getting worse. That is a completely different conclusion. One creates fear, the other creates perspective. This is why accuracy is not just about the machine and the cuff. It is also about what state your body is in when the measurement happens. If you are sitting there distracted by the need to urinate, that is not a calm, resting state. That is a stressed, uncomfortable state. And the reading can reflect it. Now, does that mean every higher reading with a full bladder is meaningless? No. But it does mean the number may not be your truest resting number. And if you are trying to track your pattern over time, that matters a lot. Because pattern is everything. One isolated number can scare you. A clean pattern helps you understand what is actually happening. So before you check your blood pressure, do something very simple that people skip all the time. Use the bathroom first. That one step may give you a reading that makes a lot more sense. Time number 4. When you are upset, anxious, talking, or mentally revved up. This may be the most common hidden mistake of all. A person sits down to measure blood pressure, but they are not actually at rest. They are irritated. They just had an argument. They are worried about a symptom. They are thinking about bills. They are talking during the reading. They are watching the news. They are scrolling their phone. They are checking the number while already afraid of what the number might be. And then the result comes back high. That should not surprise us. Blood pressure is deeply connected to the nervous system. If the body feels stress, pressure can rise. If the mind is activated, pressure can rise. Even talking can affect the reading. That is why checking it while chatting, reacting, or mentally wound up can be so misleading. And this creates a terrible cycle for some people. They feel anxious about blood pressure, so they check it, but they check it while anxious, the number comes back higher. Now they become more anxious, so they check it again too soon, and again, and again. By the end of it, they are no longer measuring blood pressure. They are measuring fear. That is where people can really get stuck. Especially after 60, when health concerns start to feel more personal and more urgent. A single high number can feel like a threat, but context matters. Was it checked after sitting quietly or in the middle of worry? Was it checked in silence or while talking? Was the body calm or already in alert mode? That is the real question. And this is why a proper blood pressure reading is not just a technical task. It is a state of body task. You are trying to catch your circulation in a calm moment, not during irritation, not during panic, not while discussing something emotional, not while the television is making your heart race, and not while you are talking through the reading. This does not mean emotions do not matter. In fact, they matter a lot. If stress is raising your blood pressure regularly, that is part of the overall picture of health. But if what you want is an accurate resting reading, then measuring during emotional activation is one of the worst times to do it, because the number may be real for that moment, but misleading for your baseline, and those are not the same thing. Time number 5, right after a meal, especially if you are over 60. This is the one almost nobody talks about. Some older adults notice they feel a little lightheaded, tired, weak, or off after eating. Many never connect it to blood pressure, but there is a real reason this can happen. After a meal, blood flow shifts toward digestion, and in some older adults, blood pressure can drop during that period. There is even a name for it, postprandial hypotension. In plain English, that means blood pressure dropping after eating. Now, this does not happen to everyone, and it does not mean meals are dangerous. But it does mean that measuring right after a meal may not always give you the best picture of your usual resting blood pressure, especially if you are older, especially if you already take blood pressure medication, especially if you sometimes feel sleepy, weak, dizzy, or unsteady after eating. This is where a lot of confusion begins. Someone checks blood pressure after breakfast or lunch, and the number looks lower than expected. They assume, great, everything is perfect. But maybe they just measured digestion, not baseline circulation. Again, that distinction matters. And after 60, it matters more, because the body often becomes less forgiving about these shifts. What used to be a tiny dip may become more noticeable. What used to feel normal may start showing up as fatigue, dizziness, or that strange washed out feeling after a meal. For some people, it is especially noticeable in the morning. And that makes it even easier to misunderstand. They think the problem is random, but the timing is actually the clue. Now let me be clear. There are situations where a clinician may want to know what your pressure does after meals, especially if you are having symptoms. That is different. But if your goal at home is to understand your normal resting pressure, right after a meal is not the cleanest time to measure it. Because once again, you may be measuring a temporary shift, not your true baseline. And if you do not understand that, the number can send the wrong message. The mistake. Most people make the biggest mistake is not owning a blood pressure monitor. The biggest mistake is assuming every number means the same thing. It does not. A reading taken calmly after resting with an empty bladder before stimulants and not right after a meal tells one story. A reading taken after rushing while worried after coffee with a full bladder or after lunch tells another story. Same person, same machine, completely different meaning. And this is exactly why some people become obsessed with numbers that do not deserve that much power. They check too often. They check at random times. They compare readings that were taken under completely different conditions. Then they conclude their body is doing something dramatic. Sometimes it is, but sometimes the routine is the real problem. That is why understanding the pattern matters more than chasing isolated numbers. 3. Quick examples that show the difference. Let me make this practical. Person number 1 wakes up, uses the bathroom, sits quietly for a few minutes, avoids coffee first, stays silent, and measures at roughly the same time each morning. Those readings are much more likely to be useful. Person number 2 checks blood pressure after climbing the stairs, while thinking about a stressful appointment, with coffee already in the system, and talks through the whole reading. That number may look high, but it may not reflect a true resting state. Person number 3 is over 70, takes blood pressure after lunch because that is when there is free time, and notices the number sometimes looks lower and leaves them feeling relieved. But if meals are causing a dip, that reading may not tell the whole story either. Same monitor, different timing, different meaning. That is why timing is not a detail. Timing is part of the reading, what a better routine looks like. If you want more reliable home readings, the goal is consistency. Same general time, calm body, calm mind, seated properly, quietly rested, not right after exertion, not right after caffeine, smoking, or alcohol, not with a full bladder, not while talking, not right after eating if you are trying to capture your resting baseline. That kind of routine gives you something much more valuable than one dramatic number. It gives you a pattern you can trust. And that pattern is what helps you and your healthcare professional make sense of what is really happening. Because blood pressure management should not be based on confusion. It should be based on useful information, the real takeaway. So let us bring this together clearly. If you are over 60, never trust a blood pressure reading too quickly when it is taken right after exercise or rushing around within 30 minutes of coffee, smoking, alcohol, or similar triggers, when your bladder is full, when you're upset or talking, or right after a meal. Those are 5 of the easiest times to get a reading that may not reflect your true resting blood pressure. And that matters, because the wrong timing can create the wrong story. A number that looks scary may simply be temporary. A number that looks fine may not reflect your usual baseline. And if you do not understand that, it becomes very easy to misread what your body is trying to tell you. The goal is not to fear the monitor. The goal is to use it wisely. Check your blood pressure when your body is settled, when your routine is consistent, when the number actually means something. That is how you turn a home monitor into useful information instead of unnecessary stress. And if your readings are repeatedly high, repeatedly low, or changing in ways that concern you, especially if you have symptoms like chest pain, shortness of breath, dizziness, fainting, severe headache, or unusual weakness, discuss that promptly with a qualified healthcare professional. Because timing matters, but symptoms matter too. I want to ask you something directly. Have you ever taken your blood pressure at home and gotten a number that scared you, only to check it later and see something completely different? And when do you usually measure yours? Morning, evening, after coffee, or at random times? Let me know in the comments. I read them, and your experience may help someone else realize they are not the only one confused by these numbers. And if this video gave you clarity, subscribe, like the video, and share it with someone over 60 who checks blood pressure at home and may be getting misled by the timing. Sometimes the most important health mistake is not the symptom you notice. It is the routine you never realized was distorting the signal. This video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. If you have concerning blood pressure readings or symptoms, speak with a qualified healthcare professional.